Bodnar, do you have any questions?
Where is he?
Yeah, I was having some technical difficulty. I have to switch. My question is, in your presentation, you mentioned that they plan to have funeral services. So do you guys have a plan for parking? I do understand very clearly parking are not required for religious institution, but at the same time, there's what they call common sense. Whether it's not
Yes.
required, whether that is a common sense to have a parking plan. But specifically related to for funeral services, do you assume that majority of the people may not belong to the neighborhood coming to attend this? They may not be. Do you have any parking plan for that use?
No, we don't, and we don't think that would be any different than regular services in terms of parking. We do have the 3 spaces on the side of the building that may be able to that would be able to handle any funeral vehicles. And we, you know, most of the funerals, if not all, will be done by a company called Stanetsky's, and they provide their own type of security, parking, and they actually, for a funeral, the parking will be easy because there's going to be people on the street directing you. Are you going to the cemetery? If you're not, back over here and so forth. And so we won't be directing the funerals ourselves. And we may not be doing a lot of funerals because Stanetsky's has their own space to do funerals, and we have partnered with them on that end. So only on occasion would we be doing funerals. But I will tell you, as a neighbor, Temple Emeth does a significant amount of large funerals, and they park in the neighborhood, and that's never been a problem. It's actually easier than the high holidays because there are people directing traffic, both generally state police and funeral personnel. So it has never been a problem. It's actually easier than high holiday services because of that. Most funerals have state police details on them.
And
But my observation, living next to Emeth, or living down the street from Emeth.
just to follow up, I believe my colleague asked a question about the character of the neighborhood. So your statement, you don't believe the center will change the character of the neighborhood. You believe that it's in the corner. I think you given a narrow definition of the character of neighborhood. You specifically say it's in the corner.
Yeah, we're on the corner of Grove and Bellingham. And so Grove is I won't call it a highway, but it is a 4-lane roadway. And so it's not really part of the neighborhood, but when you go into Bellingham, you're going into the neighborhood. And so we have designed this building to go into the neighborhood and appear as a building in a single family home. But going back to that question, what is a significant part of Dover and was reinforced by town council is, and you get into a fuzzy area because FAR equals, but there is no design review, but there is review of FAR. So it's sort of what did the gentleman at the First Circuit say yesterday? It was a waffy area of the law, but there is no design review. But we were very careful, and the architects here, if you want them to address it, from the get-go, we tried to design this building, and we spent a lot of time, and there were a lot of designs before they hit the light of day, to modify the building to make it read as part of the neighborhood. And we really think it does. We think it's a good design. Even Mr. Levy liked the design. He said, but it was in the wrong place.
Well, would you referring to the Dover, would you agree that the Dover amendment said the town can apply reasonable regarding to the massing, the size of the building? Would
Yeah,
you? So
yeah,
that question is related to the character of neighborhood.
right,
So
but
wouldn't you say that the board has the authority to look at the character of the neighborhood and relating to the size of the building, how it's fit on the street?
I don't think so. I think that you do have the right to apply a reasonable floor area ratio standard and how it fits in terms of size. But if you look at the FAR, which is
Right.
like 3,500 approximately is in the basement, so it's invisible FAR. So we're really talking about a building about 17 that you can see,
Eddie.
1,000 square feet. So I think it fits into the neighborhood. There are some very big houses in this neighborhood, but I think it's been designed.
I'm sorry, Mr. Allen, let me just pause you for a moment. If you are on this Zoom and you are not muted and you're not presenting, please mute yourself. Jonathan and Andrea, I'm talking about you in particular, please.
So I think that the building has been designed to be consistent with the neighborhood and be consistent in general with a single family neighborhood. But it is a temple. It is a place of worship.
Okay. My next question is related to safety, like pedestrian people crossing the street. Do you guys ever consider to? I know there's some exception, but I'm talking about common sense. Are you guys ever consider working with the town transportation to come with a plan how the people crossing the street, circulate, that's a, that is a concern to me in terms of public safety, to be quite frankly.
When we have a large event, we most certainly will be working with the Brookline Police Department in terms of helping, as most temples do, by the way, the flow of traffic, the flow of pedestrian safety. So on the high holidays or another big event, we will be working with the Brookline Police Department, like most large.
But but the question is, do you have a plan that actually can share with the town transportation? They can give you feedback, what's gonna work, what's not gonna work. Do you have a plan? Yes or no?
We have some ideas, yes.
Well, do you have a written plan that you
We
present?
do not have we are not required to, and we have not created such a thing.
Well, I understand the point you're not required, but I'm trying to come in with common sense. I know, sometimes you may have a right to do something. It doesn't mean it makes sense to do it, because I'm trying to see what's the common sense is. Because if you look at Grove Street, the intersection, and if you look at further down, that's where they have it's a heavily.
Yes, but there's also crosswalks, and we intend to look at those and see if there's ways to improve them with pedestrian buttons in the same. But we've looked at that, but at this point we're in a legal process, and as we go forward from here, we will look at operational issues.
Okay.
Mr. Allen, I'm sorry, Water, let me just interrupt for a second. Mr. Allen, I heard you say that your client intends to work with the police department on traffic and pedestrian safety issues on high holidays and other major events. Is that something that you would be willing to incorporate as a condition of any approval?
I'm not opposed to it, but the problem with that is every temple does it. So why are we? I'm very sensitive to this Orthodox temple being subject to restrictions that are on nobody else in town. I think that's a mistake where we are in this world of ours. But every temple does it, and the police actually don't charge. If you go to the high holidays at Temple of Haba Shalom, there's 2 police officers, and they're stopping traffic for the pedestrians, and they're helping people park and pull up when they're handicapped people that need to get out of their car. The same as at St. Mary's on Christmas and Easter and Good Friday. It's done throughout this town as a matter of course, without a condition. Nobody else has that condition, but the police department does that. And that's one of the beauties of our town. They do it. And they've done it forever.
So let
Since
me just be super clear. You are not willing to agree to a condition that your client will work with the police on traffic and pedestrian safety issues on major events.
I could, if it's worded the way you just worded it, I could agree.
That's what I'm suggesting.
I would agree to that, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm sorry, Wadner. I did not mean to interrupt if you were still asking questions. Wadner, do you have further? You're good? You're good. Okay. Maybe it's not going to be so terrible when we're all back in person. We won't have to do muting, different backgrounds, sign language, and the like. Okay. Are there any more questions by the board for Mr. Allen at this point? Jesse. Thank you, Jesse. Wadner. I ask you to go next.
You can go ahead.
Oh, you're still considering? Okay. I am inclined to agree with nearly everything that Jesse said. I do want to start by expressing that I share Jesse's disappointment that this proponent has not, particularly in light of the significant neighborhood concerns here and the fact that this is an institution that professes to want to work with the neighbors and be part of this neighborhood and be in this location long term. I am deeply, deeply disappointed and maybe even a little bit offended that this proponent has not made efforts to make this building more efficient, to shrink it down, to be more in scale with this neighborhood out of a mere act of respect for its neighbors. There are a number of spaces within this building that could be doubled up on or could be used for multiple purposes, and they have not made an effort to do that. And as I said, I am extremely disappointed in that. But to Jesse's point, there is a burden on the applicant to explain how the space that they are proposing, the bulk, the density, the gross floor area, ties back to religious uses, which are Dover protected uses. And Mr. Allen, to his credit, has done a very good job of articulating exactly how each space is going to be used for a protected Dover use. Whether it is, the sanctuary, whether it is the overflow social space, the classrooms, the different offices, all of it falls squarely within Dover uses. Now, if this were a lawsuit and it was being tried de novo, as these cases are, could there be someone who says, you could shave off this, you could shave off this, this is not an actual Dover use? Sure, but based on the information that has been provided to us, the plans that have the square footages, and Mr. Allen's detailed explanation of how each square foot of this building is going to be used, I think it does compel the conclusion that the entirety of this project is subject to protection by the Dover Amendment, such that we cannot, impose standard regulations that we might otherwise wish to impose on a project of this size in this location. And for that, I am deeply sorry to the neighborhood that our hands are tied in this fashion. And I'm deeply sorry that this applicant has not seen fit to be a better neighbor under the circumstances. I will say that I am to some extent heartened by the fact that the applicant has readily agreed to certain conditions that I have requested. One of them being that they will agree to on high holidays and other high traffic impact days, communicate to the congregation that they should be walking to the extent possible, and that those who cannot walk should carpool, and that they should be respectful of their neighbors and not block people's driveways or park in places that will create unreasonably dangerous conditions for members of this neighborhood who will be greatly impacted by this overly large religious structure. I also appreciate the applicant's willingness to agree to include in an approval a condition that they will work with the Brookline Police Department on traffic and pedestrian safety matters on high holidays and other major events. And Mr. Allen, I would ask you what, if anything, would be agreeable with respect to restricting the hours of operation of the playground?
You would restrict the hours to 4 hours per day. Our thoughts are 2 hours in the early morning, not early morning, but school morning, and 2 hours in the afternoon. And the reason why we say 2 hours, because there may be one group for 45 minutes, there may be another. Not all the kids will be on the playground at the same time. So we would do 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon. It might be a little different on the high holidays where while people are praying, there may be someone that takes children outside, but it would still be a cumulative of 4 hours.
So, Mr. Allen, I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. Is
Yes,
that correct?
that's what I said.
Okay.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, one other condition, unless I missed it, that there'll be no third-party use.
And
Absolutely.
that there will be no third-party use.
Well, I'd rather say that all uses, bar mitzvah is a third party. All uses will be Chabad uses.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to correct something I said. I made a mistake. Asbestos has been removed, lead has not been removed, and that's done by at the time of demolition. I misspoke. I apologize.
So Polly, if you could please make a note of that in
Right.
condition 3.
I'll leave the lead into lead remediation.
Okay. The last thing I want to say before asking Wadner for his contribution to this deliberation is that where I disagree with Jesse is that the stairwell overrun is exempt. What I heard the architect say is that this is not a religious element, but rather a design element that serves, quote, no religious purposes. For that reason, I do find that a special permit is required, but as we heard Mr. Allen articulate earlier, the purpose of this design element, this overheight design element, is to provide screening for other exempt elements and to provide, I would expect, some degree of visual buffering in order to make the non-exempt, the exempt elements harmonize with the design as called for by our bylaw. So I find that there is a suitable basis for granting a special permit for that height discrepancy. Wadner.
I am kind of a fence regarding this project. My philosophy is all about land use. You have to preserve the character of the neighborhood. I do understand that the applicant by right uh, has the right to build within the neighborhood. At the same time, that I'm more going toward what's common sense, what makes sense. The size is, if you look at it, there are the pictures provided by the applicant. You can see the two houses they actually tore down, and you can see that. And then when you put that structure, it seems to me, at least to me and the people in the neighborhood, that it seems like it doesn't belong there. But at the same time, if the applicant will consider a structure that less, you know, massive, that what they propose, that's something that, I would definitely consider. I heard that's the reason why I want to go last. I'm trying to listen to my colleague to the point, still, related to my conscience and, and the philosophy that, land use, things, you have to preserve the character of the neighborhood, especially the street. Uh, you know, um, I'm not opposed to the use, but I'm opposed to the building where it will be sitting. So I will just leave it as that. Thank you.
So Wadner, are you voting no on this project?
That's where I'm leading to. That's where I'm leading to, because I believe that, if I'm walking down the street, passing that structure, I should have confidence to say that, I contributed to put it there. But, and I'm all about, what makes sense, what is reasonable. But, I do understand that the applicant has the right, but at the same time, you may have a right, but does it make sense? That's where I am, and I feel like, I heard both sides, and I do understand that, where that little authority the board has regarding the massing, the size of it, I believe that, the character of the neighborhood, if it's fit with that, it will be reasonable if the applicant will reduce the massing of the building, make it kind of a fit.
So, Mr. Allen, I think what you are hearing from the board is that as this project stands today, you will not be able to secure the unanimous vote of all board members. So my question to you is whether you are content with a vote that is tantamount to a denial of the project, or if you would like to further continue this to afford your client the opportunity to make design changes, to respond to member OJ's concerns.
Well, I understand what Mr. OJ is saying, but when he says we have a right to this building, but it doesn't make sense, he's saying legally we're entitled to this building. And I think to make changes to this building is interfering with our religious freedom to worship. And we won't have room to worship. And we won't have room to educate. And I think that's sacred in this town, is religious. And I understand his concerns and I respect it. But frankly, we have a right, as he said. If there's some tweak we could make, to satisfy Mr. OJ, we would do that. But a wholesale change in the sanctuary, a wholesale change in the social hall, a wholesale change in the education destroys our religious freedom to have this building. That's secret. But if a small tweak, we've made tweaks we came here with a unanimous planning board support because we made changes. We took out 2 classrooms. We moved the building closer to Bellingham and Grove to increase setbacks. We took a whole story off the left side of the building so those abutters would have less interference. So we do have a right. We've made the changes. Would we tweak it? Yeah, but if we're talking about wholesale changes, we'll unfortunately have to go to a high authority. I mean, and I think it's sad that we're being denied the right to have a synagogue. I mean, this is serious business, and the law is very serious. And I respect what you're saying, Mr. OJ, but you said we have a right here. And all we want is, as an Orthodox Jewish synagogue, to exercise that right.
All right, thanks for your comments, Mr. Allen. I'm assuming that you are not looking for a continuance. Or Wadner, let me ask the question, do you feel like there are, to use Mr. Allen's wording, tweaks that could be made to this that would satisfy you, or are you looking for something more wholesale, which Mr. Allen has indicated his client is unable to do?
Well, for example, the food step of the structure, like W's, if you have a space, you can pretty much, there's way architecturally can be designed that can turn to a multi-purposes that can reduce the footprint of the building. And also, Mr. Spector printed out that there are other religious institutions less than the size of what you propose. They have a bigger capacity. They use a bigger number. So I don't know whether what Mr. Spector printed out, whether it is a fact or whether it's just a speculation.
Can Rabbi respond to that?
That I respond to. Chabad of Harvard has one Shabbos a year where they get 1,000 people. We also get 1,000 people at the mall at Chestnut Hill. They don't do it on their site. And actually, Chabad in Cambridge is in the middle of dealing with the city of Cambridge to put up a structure that's bigger than ours. What they have now is homes, and they're in the midst, you could check with the town of Cambridge, to actually extend it. Another thing that was very important, Chabad in Newton is not 15,000 square feet, it's 18,500 square feet. But most importantly, we're an Orthodox synagogue, and you can't compare us to one over the other. It has to go as the whole in the town of Brookline. And we're definitely smaller than the Orthodox temples, if it's Green Street, or the same size, and the conservative temples. So that's that. And Cambridge, you could check with them. They're building 2 structures now.
Thank you, Rabbi Wadner. I think that we are ready for a roll call vote. I don't know that there's anything productive left to be said here. So, Jesse Geller, do you vote to approve or disapprove the proposal under the Dover Amendment? You're muted.
Some would say that's a good thing.
Might be.
I vote to approve under Dover.
Wadner, do you vote to approve or disapprove under Dover?
I vote to disapprove.
I vote to approve under Dover, but failing to secure a unanimous vote of this board, it is a denial, Mr. Allen and Rabbi.
We will exercise our appellate rights.
Understood. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks to the members of the neighborhood who gave so much of their time to help guide the board in making this decision. And with that, this hearing is closed.
Thank you.